Before Europeans landed on African soil with Bibles in their hands and flags in their pockets, our ancestors already had systems of belief, rituals, and a deep spiritual understanding of life, nature, and the unseen. They honored energy, ancestry, balance, and reciprocity. They didn't need to be told where God was, because they understood God lived through them, through the land, through their lineage. Then came colonization, and with it came a campaign, not just to take land and labor, but to take belief. Because once you replace a people's God, you control their mind. You make them fear their own spiritual traditions. You make them ashamed of the very source that once gave them power. Now, people will argue Christianity existed in Africa before colonization. And that's true, in parts of North and East Africa, long before the slave ships. But that's not the full story, because European colonizers didn't bring faith, they brought their version of faith, one tied to empire, submission, and obedience. They used the Bible as a passport for power, and millions of Africans who had their own rich, divine, spiritual heritage were forced or manipulated into abandoning it. So here's the real question. What if that spiritual break created a wound that's never healed? What if the greatness that sleeps inside us, our creativity, our intuition, our rhythm, our resilience, has been dimmed because we've been disconnected from the original practices that once taught us how to activate it? It's not about rejecting Christianity. It's about questioning who taught it to us and why. Because if your faith was delivered through the hand of your oppressor, at what point do you start asking if the message was for your freedom or your control? Imagine if reconnecting with our ancestral belief systems, not to worship idols, but to realign with our original frequency, could reawaken that spark in us. The confidence, the creativity, the spiritual awareness that once defined who we were before the colonizer told us who to be. So when I ask, what if we've been disconnected? I'm not asking you to abandon your religion. I'm asking you to remember yourself. Because power doesn't come from praying harder to a foreign god. It comes from knowing who you are, where you came from, and what already lives within you. That's the conversation we need to start having. So if everything I've just said hits home, or makes you question what you've been taught to believe about your own power, don't scroll off yet, because in part 2, I'm breaking down the real signs that show when a person's been disconnected from their roots, and how to start reconnecting to that original source of power that's been buried inside us all along.